You're listening to the Disruptive Franchise Podcast with Stacey, the podcast that celebrates innovation in franchising and peeks behind the curtain of failure, success, and the future of the franchise industry.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Disruptive Franchise Podcast. I am delighted to have one of our big 2025 winners with me today, Katie Bullon. Welcome, Katie.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It's lovely to see you.
It's great to see you. Great to see you. We're going to get into the awards in a minute and talk about what happened and what you won and all of that stuff. But tell us first about your franchise. So you're Activ Marketing Franchisor. Tell us a little bit about Activ Marketing.
So, we are a marketing agency franchise. So we support people that want to run their own marketing business with support. And we have franchise partners across the country. So we have all of the support at our head office team, and we provide them with a marketing business in a box, essentially. So they start with us, we launch their business within 4 weeks, and they get all of the branding, marketing, behind the scenes tools, software, and the structure with everything included to be able to run a successful marketing business.
Amazing. And like me, you started as a franchisee, didn't you?
Yes, I did. This journey, I feel like I've spoken about it a lot. So I'm like, I don't want to bore everyone, but a lot of people probably don't know. But so I was within corporate marketing, international roles, traveled a lot. And then when I met my husband at work and we decided to have our first baby, that was the time where, self-employment was always calling for me, because that's kind of where I came from. My family were all self-employed, and that was just kind of a route that I always wanted to take. So when I had my first baby, that was when I thought, right, now's the time to go freelance, because, my husband traveled a lot as I did, so we couldn't both do it. And I set up as a kind of freelance solo marketer and was in my bedroom with a baby and a laptop, and was just like, this is just not what I thought would be. Then I went down the route of looking at, do I set up a nursery so I can take this baby to nursery? Do I set up a shop? Like, what do I do? Marketing was what I always loved and what I was good at, and, what people were coming to me asking for. I wasn't short of clients when I was on my own. It wasn't that. It was that it was just me, and being used to being in this kind of big corporate machine, being able to be that strategy and project in the middle, but not actually, have a clue about tech support and all these kind of things. So it was when I found Activ, that was when I realized that, yes, I can do what I'm good at and not be doing it on my own and service these clients and have that balance. So I bought in as a franchisee in 2014. I ran the South Wales territory for 6 years and had about 50 clients, didn't employ anyone, had 2 more babies in that time, husband still all over the world. It just, it worked. And it was a great way to be self-employed. Yeah. But then there was a change. So COVID hit, and it was, it was a time that was for Activ, the franchisor. He was living in Singapore, and, the market had changed from when Activ started. And I was the first person to come into the model and really use it how I was using it as a marketer. It'd been very much a web design franchise when it started, and it was much more kind of career changers coming into marketing from, say, different corporate roles with transferable skills. So I kind of came in and was like, well, this is actually something that could be used slightly differently and in a way that means you can be that one-stop shop for clients who have got bigger budgets and, want that kind of trusted partner. So I had started using the model differently. And with the franchisor at the time after COVID, like I said, it was the point where he needed to think, right, we need to change this and adapt with the market. Or for him, he couldn't get over here after COVID, etc. So I actually approached him and offered to buy him out. And all the other franchisees had kind of been saying, come on, Katie, go and do it. And I was like, oh God. So my youngest was 12 months old at the time. And I mean, COVID was good because my husband was kind of like homebound. So that was good. But so I remember him saying to me, do you really want to do this? Is this the right time? And I was like, yeah, I'm doing it. So yeah, negotiated a buyout and went from, my territory of 50 clients to, being responsible for the whole network of over 1,000 clients. And I think there was about 15 or 17 franchisees at the time. And just, yeah, that the rest is history. So that was 5 years ago. And it's been a lot more work and skeletons in the closet than I ever thought there would be, but the outcome has been so much better. And the journey has been, I'm a different person than I was 5 years ago in terms of, personally and professionally. It really changes who you are when you take on this huge challenge and managing change and dealing with people and understanding the industry and not just looking at franchising, but looking wider within the marketing industry as a whole. Having that confidence to think, do you know what? There's actually a problem out there that I am going to solve. And, I'm so proud of everyone within the network. And yeah, and what we've done the last 5 years has been amazing. And I've loved it every minute of it, even the tough times, which there have been, undoubtedly. It was a complete revamp of the whole franchise network. But it's something that, yeah, I'm really proud of and really have enjoyed, and I'm excited for where we are now, to be honest. Yeah.
Amazing. I first became aware of Activ Marketing while I was a judge at the Disruptive Franchise Awards you'd entered 2024. And I remember reading your application, like for the awards, just thinking, oh my goodness, like this lady has completely transformed everything about this business. And it was quite a read. And it was one of those ones that really stuck with me. I didn't actually meet you in person, I don't think, until 2024 at Ideas Fest. I think
Yeah.
that's when we first met in person, or first when I remember meeting in person. And one of the things I really associate with you is fun. And I think that we get so serious in franchising, and maybe it's the marketing geek in me as well, because I love what you guys do, but I really relate to it. But I just think that we can be so serious about like franchise and, corporate style events and, and then serious about having fun and having
Yeah.
serious fun. But actually with you guys, I think one of the values that I kind of get from you definitely is fun, because I picture you with like your cowboy hats. And so for context of anyone watching or listening, the first time that I met Katie at Ideas Fest, they were there. They had like a stand area, not just like a stall and a table and a tent. They had a mechanical bull. It was brilliant. Tell us what drove.
Well, I know. And do you know what? I think for me, even though I was in corporate, you know, I was really lucky at that point to have joined a business that's absolutely huge globally now. And I joined at a time where I grew with the business, and as a result was really working very closely with senior management, like the CEO, and the values and culture of those people within that business really aligned with me as a person, which I suppose is why I lasted so long and did so well there. But it really taught me that, I've got a really good work ethic. I've been brought up by self-employed people who have done really well, but that's not come at a price for, having to graft. And, I am not afraid of hard work. And I think balancing that culture of fun with that work ethic for me is what makes something work. And, I think when you look at shared values and all these kind of things, it's so important to me that our brand and our team and our franchisees, we are very much having fun, but it's got to come from a place of substance where everything is strategically right, structured, the processes, which allows for the fun to actually happen in a genuine way, in my mind. Do you know what I mean? I think if you haven't got all that backup, the fun can be chaos.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always been about thinking about how we can bring our brand to life, and working in marketing, we can have a bit more fun with it. And Ideas Fest was the perfect time to think, right, we've been shortlisted for Great British Entrepreneur Awards. We've got this relationship now, like we can't just go and sit behind a table and give out flyers, because to me, that's just not going to work. With brand build, it's about impact and being remembered, but you've got to be clear on your messaging and your values to get that right. So obviously, yeah, I think we took about 900 cowboy hats to Ideas Fest, and it was brilliant because everyone was walking around with cowboy hats on. They were in all the shots. They were, and it has built that, for us. So it was interesting when we went to Excel then in April this year to exhibit, we were like, ooh, we've got to have a different kind of approach to our exhibit stand at the Excel because it's the Excel and it's a franchise event, and there are loads of different, there's lots of emerging brands in franchising. There's a huge, varying array of brands, personalities, people who've been in it a long time. So I was like, right, this is kind of a new space for us to exhibit at. We have got that presence elsewhere, but and I was like, do you know what? No, we're taking the cowboy hats. Like this is fine. We're taking the cowboy hats, and we took the cowboy hats, and we were giving them out around the Excel. I was doing a keynote, and I always try and, like, when I'm doing like a keynote or talk, like get a bit of audience participation because I think that really works. So I was like, no, just because it's the Excel, we're doing what we normally do. So we brought the cowboy hats in to prove a point within the keynote, and everyone's there sitting in their cowboy hats in the Excel. And, since then, people have talked about them, and I'll have calls with people and they'll say, oh, you in the cowboy hats, or, with, lots of things that it gets well received. And it's, even in an industry that is drier in many cases, you can still have that fun with it.
I love that. I just love it about you. And so if we fast forward to Ideas Fest 2025, which was literally weeks before the Disruptive Franchise Awards, the hats were everywhere again. It was wonderful. But this time you were on stage.
That year we didn't exhibit in the same way. Because I was on a franchise panel with Elite Franchise, but we still took, I think we still took about 500 cowboy hats. And it was good.
But to get on stage at an event like that, I mean, Ideas Fest is an emerging, we talk about it quite a lot. It seems to be a recurring theme on the podcast. You should probably get Frankie on. But it's a space that is an emerging, exciting business space. And to have franchising there at the forefront, I was in the audience and watched you and a couple of the other panelists on stage talking about it. And it was so exciting to see that actually, we can put franchising in this space. It doesn't have to be corporate suits and McDonald's. We know a very different side of franchising. So to bring that out into a very kind of a much younger demographic where you entrepreneurs that maybe it doesn't quite fit on paper because these are entrepreneurs with their own businesses, and actually to put franchising on the stage there, I think was so powerful for the industry. That kind of leads us really nicely into the awards that you won, because one of the awards that you were a winner of at the 2025 awards was Franchise Industry Champion, which was a new award. You're the first ever winner of that. And the other one that you won was Trailblazer Franchising. So you can start to see this picture of why you were a really good candidate for these awards this year, because you embody it.
Yeah, I think for me, I've always known that taking on Activ, it's kind of like, people that want to join us as franchisees, they probably don't even know what franchising is a lot of the time, and, I've always known that, yes, we can go at a certain pace and we can, just do the normal kind of approach to marketing that, but to get out into the other side of, like, what I would kind of call like more mainstream is, we have to educate on franchising. Yes, for the benefit of Activ, and obviously that is a big part of it for me, but also that I am so passionate about the industry, like genuinely love the industry. And I came into franchising by mistake. I was Googling buying a business in my local high street, and Activ happened to be advertising on businessesforsale.com or something. So for me, I went into that industry, and to be honest, while I had my own territory, I was head down. I was, I wasn't really exposed to the franchise industry. Since becoming franchisor, again, I was head down with 3 kids and completely just getting everything back to an even keel for the first few years. But, the last 2 years in particular that I've been out in the industry, there's so much opportunity for people that people don't know. And, so many people in life want to be self-employed. They want something of their own. They try to set up these businesses. We know from clients that come to us from a marketing perspective, you know, the people who have got these dreams to start up a business, and, you know, they're not basing it on any kind of market research, profit calculations, an actual view of how that works to make money. Some of the ideas that people come with me, like, we want to start this, and you're like, right, okay, so XYZ, is that going to work? Like, how are you going to make money off these people? Who is going to want this? Why are you different to this person? And people have got such a lack of experience in a lot of ways when it comes to the actual reality of running a business. It's people think, it's if a lot of people may think it's just the easy route to be self-employed. You've got all the freedom, you can, and it's hard, but to go into something inexperienced and very green when it comes to, the actual financials and everything that goes with that is a recipe for disaster, and from experience of working with so many clients that have come and go because, we've supported them with marketing, but actually the fundamentals of the business are wrong. But when it comes to franchising, the stats speak for themselves in terms of you are joining something that someone has put their blood, sweat, and tears and failures and budget and time and everything into making a model that is financially viable and that the market wants. And so people need to understand that more, because it's stressful when you are trying to make ends meet and you're trying to follow your dream. But actually, franchising provides a better way for people. So I just think the industry as well, it's got so much more potential in the UK, and I think that's what I find exciting about it, is that it really has got so much more potential for people who want to be running their own business. But also, what the key audience at Ideas Fest liked was, this opportunity for people who are already running successful businesses to scale via franchising rather than an alternative route. So that was what the audience was so excited about here in Ideas Fest. So it was brilliant for the industry to get on that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one thing being a business owner, it's another thing scaling a business. I think when you add in the magic of what franchising can offer to scale a business, you could see these little light bulbs popping in the room, like, oh, well, that could be for me. There is such a huge education piece. I won't get on my soapbox. There's such a huge education piece to be done
Well, we've
about
talked
what.
about this before, and I completely agree with you. Yeah.
It's just so much, and I understand why maybe it doesn't always come across, but I think we're at a dawn of a new era where actually we need to get this across, because if you look at the aging kind of demographic within franchise, if you've got franchisors coming in, late 30s, early 50s, that's great. But if you've got franchisees coming in at late 50s, or mid to late 50s, which is like the average age of a franchisee, you've got you're starting with an aging demographic. So what happens?
Yeah.
And
Well, no, and it's, yeah.
and actually I think there's no magic solution. There's no one person that can come fix this. I know that, but I also think that showing a more adaptable, fun side of
Hmm.
what franchise can be is so key in that. Like,
Yeah.
I just think that there's such another side of business that we assume isn't connected to franchising, because franchising is very much, suits and big boys. It's not at all. It's completely different, which is my experience of the industry. You also have a very disruptive approach in terms of your franchise setup. So you have, if I've understood this correctly, you've got regional franchises, and you also have more of an online, non-location specific franchise, and you run those two
Yeah.
together. And that in itself is actually quite disruptive, because a lot of franchisors that come and speak to me say, I'd really like to do that, but I don't want to upset my franchisees. How does it work in your business?
So basically, the location model is what's been in place since Activ set up in 2008. Like I said, we do have two very different franchise profiles. You know, the ones that are the second franchise profile, which are not the originals, is essentially me 10 years ago. You know, I was talking to a lot of people over the last few years, and actually for someone who has got that want to either build their own name within a business or has got an existing professional network. So they might have a following on socials, or they might just be known within their industry. The falling point was they didn't want to lose themselves in the brand entirely. They wanted the brand, but they didn't want to lose themselves entirely in the brand. And I totally get that, because for me, that was a bit of a sticking point when I joined Active, you know, and we worked around that. But so it was 18 months ago, I was talking to this one person who has now been a franchisee with us for 18 months. Her name's Lou Eddy. She is all round lush person, but she's also a brilliant franchisee. And so I'd had lots of thoughts on this over time. Do we just white label? What do we do? And for me, white label has not been something I've really wanted to do, because for me, the power of a franchise is the brand and the ease for everyone when everything is branded. And, you know, as we are growing, we are building our brand nationally more, which benefits, etc. So for me, I wanted to find a way that we could build a brand, but people didn't have to lose their name. So that's when we brought out the consultant-led model 18 months ago. And Lou was kind of my guinea pig for how that worked, how that fit with everything. And yeah, and so, I mean, Lou now, she's got clients abroad, she's got clients locally. And yeah, we now have, you know, it's still probably half and half inquiries and conversions for franchises. The location ones, sorry, the consultant ones, which are the names, so they become Activ Marketing by their name. So they are probably, they're people that have worked in marketing or have got, you know, some kind of experience in that area. And I would say, yeah, that tends to be maybe people earlier on in their career and younger. So we've got someone starting soon, and they, you know, they're a younger demographic than a lot of the others, for example. We just had someone last week, actually, she's the same. So we're looking at more that kind of like late 20s, 30s, whereas the location ones where there's career changes tends to be people who, you know, have maybe done other things and then they're coming. So yeah, I am very comfortable with how we've built it out, that we can support two very different types of people in different ways. The locations, they get more one-to-ones with me up front. They get, you know, there's more kind of training specifically. Whereas the consultants, you know, they know marketing, they know strategy. They just need the business in a box. That means they can have the extra resource to delegate work to the team. They can have all the systems and subscriptions and all these things they can sell into clients. So they still have one-to-ones with me in the first 3 months, but it's more just to, you know, work on that approach to build their client base. You know, they can build those clients with everything they've got around them, and not just based on their time that they've got, that they get that time ceiling when you've only got a certain amount of time in the day and the week.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's been brilliant. And I think both models will continue into the future. And I think, yeah, it's just building the brand in different ways. Like, so we're BFA accredited. We've got one consultant-led franchisee and one location-led franchisee on the kind of franchisee panel or whatever it is, because they both have kind of different perspectives on how they work with clients and slightly different clients. So yeah, I think the model for us, what I've always been passionate about, is it molding around people and making them the best version of themselves and elevating them. And so essentially behind the scenes, apart from some more upfront support, it's the same, but people just use it slightly differently based on their goals and their skill set, I suppose.
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
like that. I think I'm part of an online franchise myself and use it in a similar way to just pull things into my business. And I think it's one of the things that, again, you don't picture when you think of franchising necessarily, because franchising is traditionally all about location and confines and kind of, following in line with doing what you're told. And I think from a business perspective, it's really important to have the courage to go and explore different avenues in the way that that franchise model can work. And I think from what you were saying about track back to like when you were a franchisee and you were using the model in a slightly different way, I think that innovation is so key and so important, not just for your own franchise growth, but to demonstrate what is possible if we open our minds, think creatively,
Completely.
and thinking in the confines of like, this is what a franchise is. Because a franchise is a support system and a business in a box. A franchise is not a stick to beat you with. And I think if more people realise that, then we get really exciting growth in franchise.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, it's, talking about that innovation. And, for me, a franchisor has to be someone that wants to evolve a brand and a business. And therefore, that means that the people running those territories don't have to worry, and I'm really lucky in my team. So, my management team, they are the calm to my storm in a lot of ways. Which is great because, I am a creative and I am an ideas person and I am a doer, and I'm just like, we need this, we need to give them this, so this year we've rolled out things that we absolutely needed to, and it's made the franchise almost like this complete, so the additional things have been great, and the guys, they're kind of, that's great. And then, but for next year, when we're kind of looking at strategy, we've really got to that point where it's like, this is such a full offering. This is like, so they're kind of saying to me, right, this strategy this year is just maintaining. Yes, it's about keeping an eye on the industry and always evolving what we do. And there's new rollouts that we've already announced that are the focus for the innovation that we're bringing this year. But yeah, now we're at that point where this is this full rounded box. Yeah, that's the time where you also have to be like, right, for now, we stabilize and grow. And innovation is, we've done a lot of innovation. Do you know what I mean? So it's having that balance. I think in franchisor, you just have to be wanting to do that. And you have to be wanting to fill a gap in an industry because, I think the people that are franchisees are the people that want that taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
So,
Katie, if there was one thing you could do without any risk of failure, what would you do?
So I had to think about this question, and I think there's lots of things in life I would do if I could. Some aren't appropriate to talk about right now. No, I do think it goes back. It goes back to that franchise industry in mainstream. And for me, if I could get unlimited marketing budget and get Activ in front of every single solo marketer in this country, of which I think there's around 60,000 people, who there is a better way for them to have the business and earn the money that they want. And so for me, if I could just literally get on every channel and billboards in a cowboy hat, I would do that.
I would love to.
But we take our time, and we
You could get there. You could totally. Yeah, I love that though. But then, it's putting yourself in the right places at the right time to make that happen as well, isn't it? I mean, Ideas Fest
absolutely.
is growing exponentially year on year. There's so many different places that you can be and help that more, and so many
Absolutely.
different people that you can network with to help you get into that situation. So yeah, I love it, absolutely love it. Totally match your ambition, and I'm there for it all day long. Katie, how can people?
And also, we need to get franchising, like, in schools and all that kind of stuff. And so that's another thing. Just get on that train, isn't it?
We could all do a whole, I think, I don't know, part of me thinks I should organise a podcast discussion forum, like Stephen Bartlett style, around a table where we just discuss getting
I'm
franchise
there.
into young people, because it's just such a huge, it's a big passion point for me, but it's such a huge topic. And again, it's not one person that's going to solve that. It's probably
No.
a steering group with lots of different ideas, and I sit across some of those. But yes, we have to look after the future. Have to.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love it. Katie,
definitely.
how do people get in touch with you if they'd like to get in touch with you?
So our website is themarketingagencyfranchise.com. We are on Instagram, Activ Marketing Franchise. I am on Instagram, Katie Bullon _ I think. I'm on LinkedIn, Katie Bullon, and Activ are on LinkedIn as well, Activ Marketing Franchise. So yeah, the website's a good place to start if people want to learn. There's some kind of, lots of resources and videos and downloads and things that you can just have and explore before you have to have that, conversation with people. Yeah, lots of info there to get your teeth stuck into.
Amazing. I will put everything in the show notes, all of your links, and we'll see you at the 2026 awards, won't we?
Yes, you will.
Exciting stuff. Thank you so much to everybody for listening for this week. Katie, thank you so much for joining me this week. We could probably talk all day
Thank
long,
you.
but I will let you go.
I know. Thank you for having me. It's lovely to talk to you as always. And
Pleasure.
I will see you soon, I'm sure.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.
Before we finish up today, I'd love to just thank our podcast sponsors, Book When and Make Your Mark Podcast Agency, without whom this episode wouldn't have been possible. You can find more information on both amazing companies in the show notes. If you've enjoyed listening to today's episode, please also make sure that you hit the subscribe button, and I would absolutely love it if you left a review too. See you next time.